Crucible, Destiny's premier PvP playlist, has been in a bit of a rough spot recently. From cheaters on PC, a lack of new Beyond Light maps, to Stasis dominating the PvP landscape, and Trials of Osiris prompting players to form suicide squads for new loot because they despise the structure of the game mode that much. There's a lot going on. But even if all of these issues were solved in a day, it's my belief that Crucible would still be as stale as it's been for the past 2 years. Why? Well, I think that Destiny as a whole is suffering from an underlying identity crisis, one that is related to progression, among other things. Destiny does not have your typical leveling system found in any other MMO, or any other RPG for that matter, at least not anymore. Ever since Shadowkeep, leveling in Destiny 2 has really only represented one of two things: how far along you are in your season rank rewards, and how much power you gain from your seasonal artifact. Outside of leveling itself, your progression comes from the strength of your weapons and armor, and that's about it. But this highlights a much larger issue that I could spend ages discussing in another video. So, how does this directly relate to Crucible? Simply put, one of the reasons Crucible is suffering as much as it is that there's nothing to do in the core playlist. The design of PvP in Destiny 2 is pretty archaic compared to other modern first-person shooters. There are only two reasons you would play the playlist: for high-level loot that you get from weekly challenges and the competitive grind, or for fun. Now, you might be asking yourself, Yami, if you aren't playing something for fun, then why are you playing at all? And that's a great point. Everybody plays games for fun. That's kind of the whole idea behind a video game in the first place. The issue is that other multiplayer FPS games are a lot more balanced because their sandbox is a lot smaller and they don't have to worry about being an action MMO looter shooter. This makes replaying the same thing over and over a bit more engaging or tolerable. There are also things like weapon camos, character cosmetics, prestige leveling, and gear unlocks that keeps them playing. Destiny finds itself in a unique place, because very few, if any other games on the market are doing what Bungie is doing or have even tried. And those that have tried, most of them have failed. Miserably. So what's the problem? Well, the problem here is that powerful loot isn't different from any other source in the game, or any different from Crucible loot in the past. It's an arbitrary number that you seek to increase each season for the sake of keeping up with content, which on its own isn't really a bad thing. This is the structure most MMOs and other RPGs take all the time. The problem here is that because there's nothing else you want to chase within the playlist, there's no other incentive to push you forward. It just starts to wear at you and become a chore at that point. Crucible isn't evolving with the player base each season, or even each year for that matter. There's nothing new to chase within the playlist, nothing new to show off or to flaunt to other players to show your dedication. You can't sink your teeth into it. This causes a serious problem. For some players, it will be fatigue. Fatigue from playing the playlist not because it's fun, but because they're trying to keep up with seasonal power grinds. For others, even if you find the Crucible enjoyable on its own, the lack of any change or new chase will eventually wear you out as well. You're just playing the same old PvP that you have been for 2 years with nothing to show for it. Some might argue that Trials is supposed to be the solution to this, and I would completely agree with that. However, Trials has its own set of problems that completely undermine this mindset. People would rather jump off the map every single game for a gun rather than actually play it. So, what are we gonna do about it? What should Bungie do about it? Well, what I have in mind isn't a long-term solution. This is because the problems at hand don't just affect the Crucible, they affect every aspect of the game, and the primary gameplay loop and progression could use a major overhaul. This is merely going to treat the symptoms, not the disease. However, I do believe it's an important step forward that needs to be made. Simply put, we need more stuff. A lot more stuff. But before we get into that, let's highlight some of the key issues plaguing the core Crucible playlist right now. So I won't be mentioning Trials or Iron Banner at the moment because those require their own conversations. Number 1, the competitive playlist serves little to no purpose. Number 2, people aren't happy with Stasis and being frozen sucks. Number 3, we haven't had any new PvP maps added in Beyond Light and no new game modes. Number 4, there's not a lot of loot or cosmetics unique to the Crucible playlist itself. And number 5, the lack of a standardized progression system, which makes PvP and other aspects of the game boring or tedious to farm. There's also issues such as the cheating problem on PC, but there's not really a whole lot I can personally say about that. I'm not some sort of technical engineer. All I can say is, Bungie, please figure something out. Okay, so that's a lot to take in, but where should we start? Well, I think the most obvious place would be vendor refreshes. Back in Forsaken, we got a pretty solid vendor refresh. Crucible had a brand new armor set and weapons, Gambit was the hot new game mode with its own set of gear, and while Vanguard did get a refresh, it was primarily reskinned Mercury armor, which was pretty lame in my opinion, but people are happy with it. Come Shadowkeep, there wasn't a proper refresh at all. I believe they might have reissued Year 1 gear for Crucible, if I remember correctly, but it wasn't new. And now, in Beyond Light, we find ourselves in an interesting position. While the refreshed armor is brand new, it's reskinned across all 3 core playlists, which feels pretty bad and unsatisfying. However, this is exactly how vendor refreshes worked in Destiny 1, FYI. But here's what I propose. Each year, at the start of a new expansion, we need 1 brand new unique armor set added to the core playlists, alongside some brand new weapons. Quick point I want to make about the weapons, however, Bungie seems to be adding in a few weapons each season rather than all at the same time. This is both good and bad, depending on how sunsetting continues in the future, but I can talk more about that later. I just wanted to point it out. Anyway, each season following the expansion, there should be an ornament set added that expands the design of the original armor. That could be earned through a variety of triumphs such as rank resets or the competitive playlists. Other cosmetics such as ghosts, sparrows, and ships should also be added that are themed around the Crucible itself, with alternate versions available that vary slightly between Valor and Glory playlists. Now, the funny thing about this is that Destiny 2 used to have this sort of system in place during Year 1. There were new weapons and armor ornaments added each season that expanded the look of the original, even Iron Banner. Now, I will say that not all of these ornaments were that great, but is at least something to go for with a few standouts. In a perfect world for me personally, I would love something with like fiery phoenix effects that grow out on the armor as that matches the Crucible's theme, but that's a purely personal wish, and I digress. Now, let's talk about the competitive playlist. Ranked means nothing in Destiny. It hasn't for a long time, and even when it did, it was nothing like ranked playlists in other games. Pinnacle weapon grinds in the past, such as Not Forgotten, Mountaintop, or Recluse, helped alleviate this issue, but since truly pinnacle weapons don't really exist anymore, outside of the Messenger and Trials, the only unique benefit to hitting Legend and Comp is the Unbroken title, a title that takes a guaranteed 3 seasons before you see any payout if you don't have it already. Gilded titles, which started with Season of the Chosen, are a decent step in the right direction to fixing this, but it's not quite enough. These aren't actual leaderboards or anything of that nature. Let's look at Apex Legends' rank system for a comparison. Apex is a game that I play very heavily, and while I'm not so experienced in other FPS games to say that this is the best ranked solution, I think something like this would be a vast improvement. Each season in Apex Legends, a new ranked league starts. Within this league, there are 7 ranks you can progress through: Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, Master, and Predator, with only the top 750 players at a time able to become Predator. Now, how do you climb these ranks? Well, depending on your rank, each match has a certain RP cost. For example, if you were anywhere within the Gold tier, each match costs 24 RP to enter. So, when a game starts, you're in the negative, points-wise. You can increase your points gained each match by your placement and number of kills or assists, with those points capping out at 6 kills or assists. And that's it. You can't D-rank an entire tier, so once you're out of Silver, you'll never go back. But you can D-rank and lose points within a tier, and at the end of each season, you will earn cosmetic rewards based on the highest rank you reached. So let's say I reach Diamond 3 at the end of a season. I will then earn a Weapon Charm, Banner Badge, and Dive Trail themed after that rank. This gives players an incentive to play ranked each season, to show off their skill and how good they are. There's also a seasonal split in ranked Apex, but I really don't think that needs to be implemented into Destiny. We have enough FOMO as it is. So yeah. I really think Destiny needs something similar to this implemented. Ranked means nothing right now. It's good for leveling, but that can be done anywhere else in the game, and once you're done, you're done. Gilded Unbroken is a decent step forward, but it requires 3 seasons of ranked play first, with nothing else rewarded, and resets at the end of each season, rather than being something you can wear afterwards. So you aren't grinding for new cosmetics, you're not grinding for a different Gilded title, you're grinding for something you've already earned in the past, and you can't even show off how many times you've gilded it. It becomes this race to see how quickly you can earn it and still have plenty of time to show it off. Gilded titles are a great idea that need refining, as are a lot of ideas that Bungie implements, if I'm being completely honest. Okay, now let's talk about maps and game modes. In Beyond Light, we lost several Crucible maps due to content vaulting, and didn't gain any in their place. While it is unfortunate that we lost maps and didn't gain any in return, there is also a point to be made that not all maps are good ones. Several maps in the past have received public disdain in the community, so if vaulting certain maps improves the rotation, I'm personally okay with it. However, the fact that we didn't gain a single map with Beyond Light so far is absolutely pathetic. There's nothing else you can call it. Unless they have some crazy Crucible season plan to drop before Witch Queen, this isn't okay whatsoever. As for game modes, a lot of the same can be said. Sure, we have a rotating playlist each week, but those haven't changed in a while. Rift would be a fantastic breath of fresh air, not to mention, what happened to Crucible Labs? This was a playlist that existed purely to test out new game modes, and it's just gone. When it comes to Stasis and its role in the Crucible, there's not a whole lot I could say about that myself. My personal opinion is that I'm okay with it existing and quite enjoy it. While it is frustrating getting frozen, there are plenty of incredibly cheap abilities in the game already. That's just kind of how Destiny works, but it definitely needs a major retuning. I will leave that conversation up to the PvP community as a whole, however. And that's all I've really got on my basic overview of the Crucible right now. Outside of Stasis, I would say the Crucible meta is pretty solid. There are some things I'd like buffed for sure, but nothing feels too overpowered to me. I think a lot of the discontent with Crucible right now is that Trials is a horrible experience that took nearly a year to get any major changes, and nothing else has really been added to invigorate PvP. It feels as if Trials was supposed to carry the entire Crucible playlist, and it can't. That's just not feasible. But I would love to know what you all think of the state of Crucible. I'm just one guy who loves the game. Nothing I say is guaranteed to be the best way to fix things, but I believe starting the conversation and spitballing ideas is the best way to find a solution that benefits as many people as possible. Without discussion, nothing will ever change. But with that being said, my name is Yami. Be sure to yell at me in the comments, and I will see you beautiful people next time.